Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I'm thinking in the morning class we'll be reading from Canto 2, Chapter 1, starting with text number 1. First step in God realization. Shri Shuka Uvacha Variyan Eshate Prashna Krito Loka Hitam Nripa Atmavit Samatak Pungsam Shrotavyadishuya Paraha. Shukadev Goswami said, "My dear king, your question is glorious because it is very beneficial to all kinds of people. The answer to this question is the prime subject matter for hearing, and it is approved by all transcendentalists." Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Even the very question is so nice. That is the very best subject matter for hearing. Simply by such questioning and hearing, one can achieve the highest perfectional stage of life. Because Lord Krishna is the original Supreme Person, any question about Him is original and perfect. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that the highest perfection of life is to achieve the transcendental loving service of Krishna. Because questions and answers about Krishna elevate one to that transcendental position, the question of Maharaj Parikshit about Krishna philosophy, questions of Maharaj Parikshit about Krishna philosophy are greatly glorified. Maharaj Parikshit wanted to absorb his mind completely in Krishna, and such absorption can be effected simply by hearing about the uncommon activities of Krishna, for instance. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that simply by understanding the transcendental nature of Lord Krishna's appearance, disappearance, and activities, one can immediately return home back to Godhead and never come back to this miserable condition of material existence. It is so auspicious, therefore, to hear always about Krishna. So, Maharaj Parikshit requested Shukadev Goswami to narrate the activities of Krishna so that he could engage his mind in Krishna. The activities of Krishna are non-different from Krishna himself. As long as one engaged in hearing such transcendental activities of Krishna, he remains aloof from the conditional life of material existence. The topics of Lord Krishna are so auspicious that they purify the speaker, the hearer, and the inquirer. They are compared to the Ganges water which flow from the toe of Lord Krishna. Wherever the Ganges waters go, they purify the land and the person who bathes in them. Similarly, Krishna Katha, or the topics of Krishna, are so pure that wherever they are spoken, the place, the hearer, the inquirer, the speaker, and all concerned become purified. Vriyan esha te prashna krito lokahitam nripa atmavit samatak pungsam shrotavyadishu ya paraha. My dear King, your question is glorious, Varian, because it is very beneficial to all kinds of people. Loka, hitam, nripa. The answer to this question is the prime subject matter for hearing, and it is approved by all transcendentalists. Atmavit samatak pungsam. Maharaj Parikshit's condition or situation is very precarious or condemned, most unfortunate, and at the same time, Varian, it's his response to the situation is just the opposite. It's glorious, recommended by all great sages as perfection and the means to perfection. He had notice. Sometimes we don't have notice. Sometimes there's a sudden something, and before we know it, the lights go out. And for everyone, the importance of hearing Krishna Katha is at the center of the discussion between Maharaj Parikshit and Shukadev Goswami. It takes two, someone who's inquisitive and someone who can present the response to that inquisitive request. What is that subject matter that should be always heard, chanted, and remembered? Shrotavya kirtitavyascha dhyaya pujascha nityada. It's a very important verse, very nice verse. That's one of his two questions. What is that subject matter that should always be heard, chanted, and remembered? In the modern context, our lives are really busy. Busy with what? Not busy with hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna, but often busy with responsibilities and etc., things that are of the temporary nature. And time passes, and it doesn't get easier, it gets more complicated. Yet the recommendation is not just wait till the notice comes that there's time of death, but rather throughout one's life. This process of Bhagavad Dharma is for everyone in all circumstances. That's going to come up shortly. It's good for everyone in all circumstances. And therefore, the cultivation of this inquisitive spirit and the hearing of Hari Katha, Krishna Katha, Bhagavad Katha is something that should be Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, regularly. That's from the previous canto, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttama Shloke, Bhaktir Bhavati. Bhakti sprouts or becomes awakened by sound vibration. Material tendencies are also within bodies, with all living entities. And so one hears about something, and such a tendency for that something common. It's how does somebody become addicted to whatever they're addicted to? No, modern addictions are so many. Technology is one of them. It's part of, without going into it, because one can easily go into it, how it becomes addictive. But there was a time when it didn't exist, so there was no addiction, and now there's a time when it's addiction. It's not like when there's some spare time, I'll go look up something. It just becomes. I was noticing this even in Vrindavan. People are going on parikram, and in their left hand is their cell phone. In the right hand is a bead bag. Or there's no bead bag, just a cell phone. And people live with the technology there. And it's not just, anyway, it's easy to start whining and complaining about how pervasive. But even simple people that don't have much financial resource and facilities, they're sitting there for hours doing whatever people do when they have their cell phone in their hand. It's addictive, my point is. So whatever the culture and socioeconomic dynamic that one finds oneself in, there's so many that are all unnecessary. And conditioned life is made up of varieties. And once the modes of nature start working in this field, that field, where's the brake pedal? How does one put the brake on? No, so often questions that come to a speaker like me is how to. How to get rid of that and how to go forward with this. Everything, material or spiritual, starts with sound. And sound starts to stir. And once things start to stir, then as time and the modes of nature move through time, things start to happen. So in other words, back to the premise, we have busy lives. Still, there must be some regular hearing. And through the course of our busy lives, where there's regular hearing, there's some cleansing effect. I've been hearing Srila Prabhupada speak on Canto 1, Chapter 7, and he makes the point over and over again, even if someone doesn't understand. Supposing there's some children or some people that are not well educated, or even they don't understand the language. He was speaking, for example, in Durban, and there were many people in the audience, apparently Indian, that don't speak English, and he's speaking in English, and he was just speaking, for a few days in a row. People sitting in this room, they may not even understand English, and that's okay, because it's beneficial. The sound vibration is beneficial. It's a permanent asset. So it's not resting upon intellectual grasp certainly it's beneficial to try to understand and grapple a bit with trying to understand and gradually understanding through purification, not just through our own effort or our intellectual capacities. The point is, there's purification. On the one side, there's purification of what? Purification of conditioned tendencies, and it's a long list. We can look at it this way: the modes of nature influencing, or from those modes of nature, certain behavior that is distracting away from the real purpose of life, and so forth and so on. Cleansing, but also, more importantly even, is reawakening of something that's forgotten. And that is a relationship with Krishna that's eternal, that's forgotten. Because the coverings cover up that which is innate to the soul. The word Atma can mean body, the word Atma can mean mind, the word Atma can mean soul, and ultimately the soul's connection with Paramatma. So hearing topics about Krishna is purifying and awakening of our dormant Krishna consciousness. So such a question and the response to that question, what Maharaj Parikshit is asking and what Shukadeva Goswami is responding, it's all good absolute for everyone. In many cases, Prabhupada would point to the fruit. The fruit meaning the European American followers that didn't know anything about any of this and weren't displaying a tendency for spirituality, going to churches or wherever. They were not doing that again and again and again and again and again. But by hearing Krishna Katha, what happened? They were able to give up their addictions and give their life to Krishna, and the transformation took place. In other words, he would point to that again and again as proof, practical proof of the effect of Krishna Katha, properly transmitted and received. Of course, there's degrees of receiving. With Prabhupada's case, there was no question of degrees of transmission. He was the representative of that vibration through disciplic succession and just transmitted it strongly, consistently. So those who hear, there's benefit. Definitely benefit. Another anecdotal evidence to just point to the same thing. The process works. The process of sadhu sangha and in sadhu sangha bhajana kriya, or hearing Krishna Katha with an inquisitive mind, or even a distracted mind, somewhat inquisitive. In the past week, I've gotten maybe 5 letters from people over years of how they started their Krishna consciousness by, being lost and this and that and the other thing and the other thing, and disillusioned and angry with God, and why is there so much suffering, and why does God allow it, and why does He create it? Faulting God and feeling miserable about life, and then going up and down in their unsteady bhakti, depending upon their education and their career and their everything. But because by Krishna's intervention, getting again a revived opportunity to hear, etc., coming to the stage of saying, this has saved my life. And that's largely, Indian-born persons. So it's not just a cultural, language-specific verification of the process. It's a principle. Those are points being made just to nourish or add weight to the faith in the very process itself. Going back to Narada's instruction to Vyas to compile Srimad Bhagavatam, he didn't exactly say, go write Srimad Bhagavatam, please. He expressed at length the work that he had done was not bringing him satisfaction because there wasn't sufficient glorification of the exactly what's being said here. The activities, the qualities, the form, the everything that's Krishna related is insufficiently done this. It's not that it wasn't there elsewhere. Besides Bhagavad Gita, there's many places where Krishna Katha is there, but insufficient, and thus his feeling what he was feeling. So when Vyas received Narada's instructions to sit in a trance meditation, those few verses, they go from 1.7.3 to 5 or 6. Very important verses, foundational verses. That's the basis of the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. Yaya samohito jiva atmanam trigunatmakam. Living entities are some moha, are big time bewildered by Maya. Yaya sammohita jiva atmanam trigunatmakam. Atma in this case is the mind. Trigunatmakam, stirring and churning the mind with the three modes of nature. People are covered, diluted, drowning in an ocean of misery, material existence, unnaturally, unnecessarily, and the process, the mitigating process, is also mentioned. That's the same as here, speaking the topics of Krishna, hearing the topics of Krishna, inquiring about the topics of Krishna. I was noticing as I was reading the purport how many times Krishna's name is there in the purport. Didn't count them, but just Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. A few other words in Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Just hearing Krishna's name again and again, supposing somebody doesn't understand intellectually or conceptually all of what's being said, just hearing Krishna's name again and again in the context of philosophy and teachings, etc. Purifying. It's all good, absolute. So then what to speak of the details and the details and the details? And then further questions about those details, and then further response and details in response to those questions about details. And one is carried forward in the course of Srimad Bhagavatam to Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan and Krishna's pastimes out of Vrindavan. And that's the crest jewel in this treasure of Nigama Kalpataror Galitam Palam. The Vedas, they're compared to a Kalpataru, a desire tree, and the Bhagavatam is said to be the ripened fruit of that desire tree. So there's unripened fruit, and there's even before it's producing fruit. But the ripened fruit is this Bhagavatam. And it's It's the best amongst all the Vedic texts, the ripened fruit. And somehow means by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his disciplic succession, we're being introduced in our lives to Srimad Bhagavatam, preliminary Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, somehow, like the best of all good things, from the desire tree, the ripened fruit of the desire tree. And it's being handed to us, along with the Bhaktivedanta purports and going further and further, commentaries and commentaries and commentaries and commentaries and commentaries on the Srimad Bhagavatam by our great acharyas to help us understand more and more of the mystery of Krishna. When the material circumstances we've forgotten because we're covered and we're too busy doing covered things to have the time and, bandwidth to hear regularly. So somehow or another, if we find the right association or the right determination to hear regularly, then we're on our way. Just as Maharaj Parikshit is on his way, hearing from Shukadev Goswami, Vyasadeva compiling their conversation and helping us get on the way. And the disciplic succession making commentaries, and the Brihat Mridanga printing press making it spread all over the world. It's wonderful. Just a little comment and then I'm going to end. While we were in Vrindavan, there was certainly an increase of hearing topics of Krishna. Not only we were hearing topics of Krishna, there were so many people in Vrindavan. I don't know if you heard, but those who live in Vrindavan were saying to us, this year, Kartik, 3 to 4 times the number of people that would be there at a normal Kartik were there. Because the pandemic, there was like empty, and now people eager to get out and about. It was so crowded, too crowded, unpleasantly crowded. And those groups were hearing and hearing and hearing. And over there, at least, within ISKCON, over there was the Govardhan Retreat Center and devotees doing things every day. Hundreds of devotees doing things every day with the Govardhan Retreat Center. And another group of devotees gathering around the ISKCON Govardhan, just hearing 5 hours a day from Chaitanya Charitamrita. I was told by one of the devotees that was there, a resident sannyasi, 40 devotees. Now that's not like the world, but it's recorded, and many persons will hear the recordings of those readings, and so forth and so on. It's like a very amazing, uplifting, purifying experience. Largely through the grace of our founder Acharya. Meaning, those things weren't going on before. And the numbers of people, and hundreds and thousands of people from all over, because of the increased focus on Sri Vrindavan Dham, through lots of reasons, but one of the main impetuses was Srila Prabhupada bringing Vrindavan again to the center of attention. just a little sharing. One day was dedicated to Govardhan Prikrama. It was the Saturday just before our final day. And the last place that we had Katha was at Uddhavakund. At Uddhavakund, one of the things we did was I just read directly from Padma Purana, the Srimad Bhagavatam Mahatmya section of Padma Purana, describing how the queens of Dwarka, who left Dwarka after Krishna's departure on his command that they do so because Dwarka was going to sink under the sea again. So they all were taken by Arjuna to Hastinapur in the care of Maharaj Parikshit. Maharaj Parikshit put them in the care of Krishna's great-grandson. Krishna's great-grandson was named Vajranabha. So Vajranabha made his headquarters, his kingdom, under Maharaj Parikshit was in Mathura, and there's 16,108 queens, with Vajranabha missing Krishna. So there's a lot, rather than retell the whole history, we were narrating this just directly from Padma Purana. They went to Uddhavakund, had loud kirtan. This was Kalindi's recommendation, to awaken, to manifest Uddhava from the bushes and grass in Uddhavakund. He appeared when the kirtan was just ecstatic, and he spoke Srimad Bhagavatam for 1 month. And this was the circumstance by which the queens returned to the spiritual world in Padma Purana. So they're, describing Uddhavakund. There were some newspaper reporters, and it appeared in Hindi in 5 different newspapers with a picture of us sitting there in the backside of Uddhavakund saying foreigners promoting Vraj culture or something like that. Then we weren't intending to do that, but a lot of people came to know. And so it's, from the seed of what Prabhupada began, the seed has grown and grown and grown. And the essence of that seed is Krishna Katha, exactly what this beginning of Canto 2, Chapter 1 is about. This question of Maharaj Parikshit to Shukadev Goswami is all around good, beneficial for everyone, approved by all the Sattvata Samhitas. It's the best Sattvata amongst the Samhitas, amongst the Vedic literature, and approved by all the great souls. So, we'll spend some time the next couple mornings that we have a morning class and just continue with hearing Shukadev Goswami's appreciation of the importance of hearing Krishna Katha. Of course, he's going to speak it, but before speaking it, he's honoring that sound vibration that he's going to speak because he heard it, and now he's repeating it. And we're repeating what he heard from Vyas, etc. The process is simple and very, very delightful. Very natural. Tendency for serving Krishna is there. Forgetfulness covers that tendency. Hearing in the right association revives that tendency and cleanses away, in principle at least temporarily, it cleanses away distractions when we're engaged in proper hearing. And slowly, slowly, slowly in the course of life, that attraction for Krishna Katha grows, if once done properly, and the distraction of other things will subside in due course, naturally. So let's see if there's some discussion.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. So, like while hearing, because of lot of conditioning and very analytical brain, sometimes, I mean, there are different things in one session. Like some things nourish our knowledge, some things nourish our, like, some information. So like mind is always like, okay, this is good for my information, this is good. So my main essence of the question is, like, just from the bhakti point of view, just to please Krishna, I mean, is should that be our consciousness, and how can we bring that?
By the process itself, one can bring it. It's natural, and as the purification takes place, then the importance of the bhakti element, as opposed to the information content, which is what we're accustomed to and conditioned by, and so forth. And so there's nothing wrong with it. But beneath all of that is the bhakti component, and it comes about gradually, naturally. So one can strive for that, but also being patient, recognizing I have conditioned tendencies and other distractions and attractions and so forth. So just proceed. The how-to is by the process.
I have one follow-up, Maharaj, that, like, as long as we have this repulsions, attractions for different things, and rightly not yet settled into Krishna Bhakti 100%. So we are recommended that we should work on the principle of, like, doing everything for Krishna's
Yes.
pleasure. But when we are trying to do that, that time also, like, there are different feelings which really feel like materialistic, and it again and again it feels to withdraw from here. So I don't exactly
Withdraw
understand.
from here means what? Explain, because I don't understand what you mean.
Withdraw from those kind of feelings.
Okay, from the feelings.
Yeah, and sincerely try to engage. But when I'm trying to engage myself that way, that doing everything for Krishna, even if it seems material externally, so some application is wrong or something, but it's just those different kind of materialistic feelings keep coming because I'm interacting with different people, and also my own contamination. So I feel like withdrawing and then go back to maybe reading or something.
Withdrawing, when you say withdrawing, I'm asking for a qualifier.
Yeah.
Withdrawing from those feelings, the materialistic appetite feelings?
Appetite, or just
from the
that.
activity itself, or from the emotions arising from that activity?
Yes, emotions arising from that
Okay, so
activity.
withdraw from those emotions. But, you put on the brake pedal and you just turn the steering wheel. And just keep doing it, however long it takes. You engage in sadhana and by accepting things favorable and rejecting things unfavorable. And the statement that, yes, but my conditioning keeps me going into the unfavorable. And so there's this rejecting of the unfavorable too much because there's too much unfavorableness, emotions and, subtle stuff going on that's, I know it's unfavorable. So I just keep, saying no to those unfavorableness emotions. It's part of cleansing. So a little bit like the question yesterday evening about cleansing the house, etc., improving our standards. It's the cart before the horse example, or a response. stay with the activity, knowing that the activity is going to churn unwanted stuff that's covering and layers and layers, and how many layers, who can say? And it's churning those things, so they keep showing up, and there's certain strains or tendencies that look like this, and some other ones over there that look like that, and it's just part of the cleansing process. And how long is it going to take? Well, that's how long it's going to take, as long as it takes. With faith in the Bhajana Kriya process. And the Bhajana Kriya process, in principle, is inspired by the inquisitiveness that started the whole thing.
Yeah.
So continue to be patient and stay with the process, however long it takes. Don't beat yourself up or throw in the towel or something. Have faith in the process that's given to us by the merciful acharyas, and you stay with it. And you keep the stepping out of those undesirable emotional states and stay with the process. I mean, a really good place to practice this is your japa. Because it's the primary means for deliverance. And how good are we at that primary means of deliverance? And you work in that area diligently, it'll help you in the other areas. Or say it negatively. Don't apply yourself vigilantly, and you'll find the other areas of life are also messy. There isn't a better means to get beyond the messiness than the proper chanting of the holy name. It's not easy. But you keep applying yourself, because that's the primary means. And then to the other things also. Same. Okay?
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. It's about the sound vibration which you have mentioned, Maharaj. Even if you don't understand, even you're hearing the Krishna Katha, it's purifying, right? And you mentioned about, okay, now when I think about Vrindavan, Vrindavan is the holy place, and in addition to that, like you mentioned about the Krishna Katha is going for so many hours and hours, and then there are a lot of kirtan and chanting and everything. Now by visualizing everything, I'm amazed what kind of a vibration it will be there in Vrindavan actually. And then I have a lot of appreciation for Prabhupada for bringing Vrindavan once again in this center. It's only a comment, Maharaj.
You're just making a comment. You're not asking a question.
Comment.
Yeah, one transcendental dimension enhances another, enhances another, enhances another. And why Kartik? I mean, Vrindavan at any time, but at Kartik it's especially auspicious. So it's just a cumulative effect. It's why many persons, although they may be going to some degree because of tourism tendencies, going to Amara's comment about other undesirable emotional purposes. So many people go it's like pious tourism. It's not everybody, but there's just all varieties. So the transcendentalness is being enhanced by being in the Dham in the month of Kartik, hearing Krishna Katha, being in the association of others, hearing Kirtan, seeing the deities. It's it's powerful. So I'm just saying the same thing you said in different words. Anything else?
Maharaj, I have a question, but not related to the katha. I just have a personal question which I
Okay.
want to ask after
Okay.
the class.
After the class. You don't want to ask it now. Okay. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.